So we're BeneFitness, as you know, Kori and Brad. We're gonna get started. Kori is gonna take you through. I'll kind of jump in, assist where needed.
If I need a sous chef. All right, are you guys ready to make some yummy cookies? So I made them the other day. So we're making, if you guys don't remember, we're making almond blossom cookies. So we're gonna make our own little Hershey Kisses, almond butter cookies. We're gonna start with, we wanna make sure we get our oven preheated. So if you guys are near your oven, let's preheat it to 350. So preheat your oven. We're gonna start with making our chocolate or our Hershey Kisses. So we're gonna take our unsweetened chocolate. I don't know what kind, if you guys have, I just got a big box of unsweetened chocolate. We want 2 ounces. So this is the box that I used. I wasn't sure how much 2 ounces was, so I measured it out. So about a square, like so. If you have these, that's about 2 ounces. And we're gonna just chop it up into really small slices. So I just cut it up right at the end, just kind of like a grating, just to some small slices. So it kind of looks like so they get really nice and small. You guys got that? So if you guys want to chop up your chocolates really nice and small, and then put it in a bowl. I'm going to put it in the microwave because I did it over a double boiler, but I don't think it's going to break, so it's fine. We're going to put it in the microwave instead. It'll be a little bit easier so we can all stay on track together. So we're going to chop up our chocolates nice and small. Put it in the bowl. Just going to make them into tiny little pieces. You guys getting those chocolates all chopped up? Any questions about chopping your chocolate nice and small? We want 2 ounces to put into a microwave safe bowl. Everybody good? So I'm going to put it in my bowl. I actually already put my cocoa butter. The next would be, I don't know did everybody get cocoa butter or did anybody do coconut oil instead? So if you don't have cocoa butter, which is fine, coconut oil is going to be maybe a little more liquidy, might be a little bit harder to pipe it right away. So you can put 2 tablespoons of your coconut oil in your bowl as well. I did the cocoa butter. The bottom of the container already had them all like grated up and taken apart. But if you have a whole piece, like so, you can just take it on a grater and grate it nice and small. So you would need about 2 tablespoons. So you can just grate it that way too.
You said it's coconut oil if you don't have the butter, right?
You can use coconut oil, yes. The taste and texture will be a little bit different, so we'll see. We may have to let it harden a little bit before we start putting it into our little piping. So whenever you use a microwave for chocolate, you really want to watch it. I will go like maybe 10 to 15 seconds, sometimes 20 at a time, just to make sure you don't want to break the cocoa solids at all. So I'm just going to put mine in for 15 seconds. I'm going to start it, and I'm going to stir it every time. Plus, it's just a little bit, so it won't take very long. It might even be done right about then. Oh, nope, mine's going to take some more time.
Me too.
So just a little bit at a time. You could even go, I did 15 seconds. I'll probably do about 20 this time. So we're making our own chocolate, so we know exactly what we're putting in our chocolate. So we're going to use maple syrup instead of regular sugar, so it can be more of a refined sugar-free item. Whereas, I mean, sugar is sugar really, but this maple syrup has less refined, so you're not actually going through all the process as you would to do like if you did regular sugar or cane sugar. Plus, I love maple syrup. I could just eat a spoonful of maple syrup. Even though this chocolate doesn't actually taste like maple, it just gives it a nice sweet taste. So you want to make sure, so right now my bowl is pretty hot, so I'm going to just stir it a little bit. And not put it back in the microwave yet until my chocolate kind of feels like it's melting, because it's going to mostly melt right now, even as I'm stirring it. Plus, we don't want it, if it's too hot, it's going to be really liquidy, and then we're going to have to let it sit for a while before we start piping it. So I still haven't put mine back in the microwave yet, just because I'm just letting it, even those bigger chunks, I don't know if you can see this, they're melting even in this room temperature, so I'd rather it stay at room temperature than to get super hot. So I'm just going to stir away. Yeah, I'm probably not going to put mine back. I might put mine back in the microwave for maybe like 5 or 10 seconds, just because I don't want it to get so soupy that we're going to have to set it aside for a little bit before we pipe it. So I know sometimes we want to be, I'm impatient and I just want to stick it in there and let it melt, but if it all melts, then it's going to take a while to harden so we can pipe it out. But I think I might give it like 5 seconds in the microwave. Did anybody still have chunks in theirs?
No, mine's all smooth.
Oh, is it really liquidy?
Yeah, a little bit. I think it's gonna have to harden.
Yes, that's the thing about this is it's a little temperamental. So you can stir it a little bit, let it sit. We'll probably do part of our stuff before we pipe it out. I also learned, like, I put it in my bag, and then I later put it back in the microwave just a little bit. I'm going to put mine in the microwave just for a second longer. So we're not going to pipe yet, but we're going to put it in. I don't use pastry bags necessarily. I just use Ziploc bags. Everybody have their Ziploc bags or a pastry bag? So we're going to pour our chocolate in our bag. I'm just going to show you. And then we're just going to let it sit for a little bit, okay? So Brad's going to help me pour into the bag just because my bag is really small hole. So we're just going to pour it in and we're just going to let it sit. We're not going to pipe it, otherwise it's just going to plop all the way down and spread out too much. We want it to get a little bit harder, but I don't want it to harden to the side of the bowl. If you have a piping bag, great. I don't own a piping bag. I use what I have at home for the most part. Good. Okay.
Yeah, that's all right.
What was that?
Ziploc, yeah.
Yep, I just use a Ziploc bag, so we're just going to pour it in. And we're going to then set it to the side because when we pipe it, we'll just end up cutting off this corner and we'll pipe them into little round circles. But we're going to, yeah, double boiler if you haven't used one before, it would be to put a saucepan or a soup container, fill it like about this much with water, and then put a glass or most likely a stainless steel bowl on top of it. And so the water, as it boils, it creates steam and it'll warm the bowl and help melt the chocolate evenly. So you don't have to use a microwave. And some people I know just don't use microwaves. So that would always be an option too, to melt chocolate that way.
Is it safe? Should I leave it in the bowl or should I put it in the baggie now?
You can leave it in the bowl for a bit. So I would just take the bowl, if it's melted, I would take it off of the hot water because it's just going to keep it warm and it's not going to get to that texture that we need to be able to pipe it. So we're going to move on. We're going to put all of our dry ingredients. So we're going to let that sit before we pipe it a little bit. We're just going to put our dry ingredients together and then we'll go back to that before we start cooking. So we're going to move on. We're going to put in a medium or in a small bowl, I already put my almond flour in a bowl, so we're going to put 2 cups of almond flour or almond meal in a medium-sized bowl. So we decided I chose to do kind of a gluten-free or paleo option. Brad and I don't normally eat gluten at home just because gluten can be kind of an inflammatory food for people. Not that it's bad necessarily, it's just it can cause some digestive issues. So we really try to focus on doing gluten-free stuff. Again, though, they're cookies, they still have sugar, they still are high in fat, they're still a bunch of calories, so it's not like it makes them necessarily that much better for you. You just want to be careful with how much you eat of them. All right, so 2 cups of flour we're going to put in our thing, and then we're going to put the rest of our dry ingredients. So I want us to put, I have it prepared just so I don't have to measure it so I can watch you guys. We're going to do our, I have a half a teaspoon of salt, a half a teaspoon of baking soda, and a 1/4 teaspoon of baking powder that I'm going to put in with that as well. And then the other dry ingredient is coconut sugar. So I don't know if anybody's cooked with coconut sugar, but we're going to use that because it's less refined as well as like white sugar. However, if you didn't,
What was the amount of salt? Sorry.
Oh, half a teaspoon of salt, half a teaspoon of baking soda, and then a 1/4 teaspoon of baking powder. And then we'll also put a 1/4 cup of coconut sugar. If you don't have coconut sugar, that's totally fine. You can use white sugar, you can use brown sugar. I would suggest not any more honey or maple syrup that we're already using because then it'll get too liquidy of a texture.
And half a teaspoon of baking soda?
Half a teaspoon of baking soda, yes.
And 1/4 of baking powder?
quarter of a baking powder, correct.
And I'm sorry, on the brown sugar or coconut sugar, how much was that again?
A quarter of a cup. If you do brown sugar though, give it a little bit of a pack, but not too, don't like press it so hard. One of my favorite things is just to bake goodies in the kitchen. I know growing up I would always be in the kitchen with my mom baking cookies, and then I actually did end up going to culinary school, spent some time cooking as a chef at a restaurant, and then got into this fitness thing. But cooking has always just been fun, relaxing space for me. I don't know if you guys like to be in the kitchen, but I find it very therapeutic. My husband will always find me in the kitchen. And then after you put all your dry ingredients, I'd love for you ladies who did the chocolate just to kind of see if it's kind of cooled down a little bit. Mine's still pretty liquidy, but just check your chocolate. Everybody get their dry ingredients in their bowl? Yeah, so quarter a cup of coconut sugar. And then all the other stuff if they need, and then just give it a nice little stir. Then give it a little stir. I got it all stirred up. How's your chocolate looking? Is it still pretty soupy?
Creamy.
Creamy?
Me too.
Because we can, I mean, they will, like you'll see, they do kind of fall, they do kind of smash into, they do end up into small little flat. They're not really puffy like a Hershey's Kiss. Just the texture is a little bit different. What do you guys feel?
I'm thinking mine's a little soupy.
A little soupy. Okay, we're gonna wait. We're gonna actually put it in the refrigerator for like 3 minutes. So let's walk it to the refrigerator, okay?
Got it.
Even in the refrigerator, when I did it, it gets a little hard, but I just put it in the microwave for like not even 10 seconds, and then it got to the perfect consistency. So we're gonna see how this works. So I'm gonna set a timer for like 2 minutes, and then we'll pull it out. Okay, so we have our dry ingredients. So now we're gonna take our wet ingredients to a microwave safe bowl, or for Kimberly, the only reason we put it in a microwave is to melt the coconut oil. So if you wanna just melt your coconut oil over the stove, or if you're not using coconut oil, or if you're using butter. But in our microwave safe bowl, I want us to put a quarter of a cup of almond butter. Or if you chose that you don't love almond butter, you can use any other nut butter, like cashew or peanut butter. I know these are kind of a knockoff of peanut butter cookies. Or you could even use regular butter, would be totally fine. So I put a quarter cup of almond butter, and then I'm going to take my coconut oil, 2 tablespoons of coconut oil, put it in the bowl.
You said quarter of a cup of almond butter?
Quarter of a cup of almond butter, or any type of butter per se. 2 tablespoons of coconut oil. And then our maple syrup, which I believe is 2 tablespoons.
Should the coconut oil be also melted, or?
Yes, we're gonna put it, I'm gonna melt it, everything together in the microwave.
Got it, okay.
So your quarter,
2 tablespoons of that, yes?
yeah, so a quarter cup of a butter, 2 tablespoons of coconut oil, and then 2 tablespoons of maple syrup. Or if you have honey, that works too. So we're gonna put it all in the bowl. They don't make a ton. They make like 12 to 15. Oh,
They might not make it to work then.
I know.
They are so good.
They're pretty addictive too.
2 tablespoons of coconut oil?
2 tablespoons, yep. I'm gonna go,
My apartment to warm the coconut oil is practically liquid.
well then you don't really have to melt it for very long. It's just to melt everything together. I'm checking on my chocolate. So I would suggest you, after you put your stuff in the microwave, let's go get your chocolate. So we can do our, we can pipe out our little chocolate things. I'm making you all multitask. I hope that's okay. Oh, you didn't have any sugar. 2 tablespoons. 2 tablespoons. And then if your chocolate was in the refrigerator, will you go grab it? All right, how's everybody's chocolate? That's our next step.
Still a little, I feel like I should refrigerate it a little longer.
Okay. You refrigerate yours a little longer. Kimberly, how's your chocolate?
I have to just stuck it in the fridge to give it a little.
Okay. We may all be at different paces with our chocolate just because people's are going to be warmer in their house or cooler. I just want to make sure that they get, well, they won't take too long to freeze once we get them done. So how are our liquid ingredients? Are they all melted and mixed together? Good, because as soon as everybody's there, we'll add our last two liquid ingredients in on.
Oh, right. We've got the vanilla.
We have the vanilla and the almond milk, or any other non-dairy milk. So mine are all liquidy. I mean, I haven't added, so I've melted my almond butter, my 2 tablespoons of coconut oil, and 2 tablespoons of maple syrup. So I'm going to add now 2 tablespoons, so there's no eggs in this, which is kind of great too if you don't do eggs. I'm going to add my 2 tablespoons of, I actually used oat milk just because I had oat milk at home. I didn't have almond milk, so I did oat milk. So I'm going to add my 2 tablespoons of oat milk and then my 1 teaspoon of vanilla.
Right, it was 2 tablespoons?
Yep, 2 tablespoons of a milk of some sort. You could use coconut milk would be great. You could use coconut milk. I used
Coconut milk.
no more oil.
And then how much of the vanilla? You said a 1/4 teaspoon?
No, a full teaspoon. Don't skimp on that vanilla. That's what makes things yummy. I love vanilla. Vanilla and maple.
Delicious.
Before we add the wet ingredients, though, I'm going to remind us all to check our chocolates, and let's see how that is. Mine's getting a little bit hard. You want to be able to, you want it to have a little bit of give when you push it, but you also don't want it to, like, if I were to dump, like right now mine's upside down and it's not spilling, so I don't want that either.
Okay, mine's going back in then.
Okay, so I'm going to have, since mine is still a little bit, mine's about ready, I'm going to show you what to do, and then when you guys get to the correct temperature, we'll start doing yours too, okay? Because mine's a little bit, mine's like just right. You guys want to watch and pay attention?
Yep.
For a second? Okay, so mine's about the right temperature. I'm just going to smush it all the way down to the corner that I'm going to pipe it out of. And then I'm just going to give a nice little snippet off the bottom with some scissors. So I have my Ziploc bag, okay, and then I'm just going to snip off a tiny little corner off the end, okay. I'm going to go to some parchment paper or wax paper because then it'll peel off quite nicely. And I'm just going to make a little tiny dollop and then raise it right up. So it's mine's just a little flat-ish, but I don't know if you guys can see that okay. And raise it up. You can make them as big or as little. They're not actually like super perfect. Oh, you guys didn't see that. They're not actually like super perfect circles. But they almost look like little, what are those things called? They're like milk. They don't really raise up like a full Hershey Kiss, which is fine because they'll melt in the center of your, cookie when you put it in there. So I'm just going to finish up mine-ish. Well, mine could probably sit even a little bit longer. Anybody? Oh, I just busted my thing. I squeezed too hard. So this is a learning experience. I squeezed too hard. I didn't cut this big enough, so it exploded out the side. But I will finish up the few that I have, so I have one big. I can make some, again, they don't have to be perfectly pretty. You can just do a little dollop and raise it up. I just squeezed my bag too hard because part of my chocolate was too hard at this point, so it's the right texture. So I'm just going to finish up mine, and then I'll come over and watch people if they need help on how to do theirs. They're just like little round circles. They're not going to stand straight up perfectly like a Hershey Kiss, as much as I wish it would. You'll probably get anywhere between 16 and 20 little dollops. If it's too hard, which mine has now gotten a little too hard because I was hoping everybody's would be done at the same time, you can pop it in the microwave and soften it just a little bit. Yeah, I will say though, if it's too thick like mine did, let me pick this up and show you, ladies. So if you can see this, if it's too thick, this big one, it like got like, it's like globby a bit, and it doesn't give it smooth texture. So it can't be too thick, but it also can't be so runny that it's just gonna pour out the whole thing. So what I would do too, I'll show you like a way to problem solve. So mine's almost a little too hard right now. So I'm gonna just put it in the microwave for maybe like 3 seconds, like not even, just to see if it'll give it a little bit of give, so I can just pipe out a few more. And then they look more glossy and smooth and not kind of like a, I don't know, a chocolate poop, which I think they look like sometimes. That's the temperamental part about this chocolate stuff. And for people who don't make chocolate, and I don't make chocolate very much either, that's why I thought it would be fun to try with everybody. And then when you put it on the cookie, it kind of just melts right into the cookie because you put it on the cookie hot. So it's okay if they're not perfect. You want to make sure you're putting it you could put it on a plate, but if you have wax paper or parchment paper or a piece of foil, that will help them come off a little bit easier. Well, I will say Hershey's Kiss, it's not just like, this is literally cocoa butter, and maple syrup. So yeah, but Hershey's Kisses has some additional stuff. So, and then we're gonna, when you're done with that, we're gonna put them in the freezer. All right, folks, are we ready to go back to our nice, soft, soupy batter?
Maybe I missed this, but what kind of cookie is it? And chocolate in the middle.
It's an almond, it's kind of like have you ever had those peanut butter blossom cookies? But it's so we're using almond flour and almond butter. Okay. So they're almond blossom cookies. So they have similar texture, they just don't have the peanut butter flavor, I guess. But so we just kind of use, because nut butter or peanut butter often, again, it's more of a legume, not a nut, and it can be an inflammatory food for people. So if you're trying to kind of reduce inflammation in your body, using almond butter or almond flour, that kind of can help cut back on the inflammation if you have any like gut issues, or even just inflammation. If you have too much inflammation, it can keep people often want to eat healthier because they want to lose weight, can keep them from losing weight, that type of thing. If you have too much inflammation, it can cut back the opportunity for it can help prevent the opportunity for you to lose some weight because you have too much inflammation. So anyways, that's a whole almond versus peanuts type of ordeal for you guys. All right, so we have our ingredients. Yes, ladies? Okay, we just want to mix our dry ingredients into our wet ingredients. I don't like to put it all at the same time. I'll put like half at a time, otherwise it gets like too much. Or even a third at a time, so I add a little bit. If you have a hand mix, like a mixer, you're welcome to use that too. But I find cookies are just as easy to stir with your hands as it is to use like a hand mixer. So I just took my dry ingredients. I put about a third of it in with the wet, and then I'll add some more. Just stirring it in, folding it in nicely, turning it over. And there's no like gluten in here, so it's not like you have to worry about like over mixing cookies or anything, because it's all not gluten, it's gluten free. So I did mine in thirds. So you keep stirring it. Mine is a little crumbly, but you also want to be able to roll it into a ball.
Yeah, I can ball it.
Yeah. So it's not going to be super wet like regular chocolate chip cookie dough. Because you will be able to form it into a ball. Yeah, so mine's not too, and it also depends on the, so almond flours, different brands I've noticed. So mine's, if you see that, different brands sometimes are finer ground than others. So that could also play into how yours turned out. So everybody good with their cookies mixed all together? All right, so you can either, for safety reasons, you can use parchment paper or wax paper on your cookie tray, which I'm gonna do, but you're also welcome, sometimes people spray it with Pam, or you can put some coconut oil or something on the bottom to keep them from sticking. but I have parchment paper, so I'm just going to use parchment paper because it's an easy cleanup too. So I'm going to put it on my cookie tray. And then from there, we're going to scoop up our cookies and roll them into balls. A good measuring for if you want a cookie about this size, these are the cookie sizes that I made, is a tablespoon, or you can make them smaller or bigger, but I'll just use a tablespoon measurement. Just kind of guesstimate it, dish it up, and make it into a ball. So they flatten a little bit. We don't want to flatten them out all the way. They'll make about 12, depending on what your cookie sheet is. Maybe, I think 12 to 16 or so. So I'll first put all my balls down and then I'll kind of flatten them. What's nice about these cookies is they only take like 6 to 8 minutes to bake, so you don't have to wait forever to eat them. I hate it when I make something really yummy and then it has to cook for like an hour. So as soon as you're done with your cookies, I want you to just push them down just a little bit. No, don't flatten them all the way. They will flatten a little, but not too much. So I'm just giving them a tiny little flatten, but not very much, if you guys saw that. So see, just a little baby bit. So we're supposed to cook them for 6 to 8 minutes, not very long. So I always recommend setting your timer for the least amount and then checking it. I cooked mine for 7 minutes when I made them the other day. They were a little bit underdone, so I would cook mine for 8. But I want, what's that, Kimberly?
Is it okay if they're not perfect at all either?
Oh yeah, that's totally fine.
Balls are okay?
It's all about how yeah, they don't have to be perfect. So I'm gonna cook mine for 8 minutes, but everybody's ovens are a little bit different. So I would set it for 6 and then we'll check it maybe. I prefer undercooked cookies over hard cookies, but if you like cookies that are a little bit crunchier, you can by all means set it for 8 minutes. It's not gonna be, I don't think, gonna overcook them too much. They'll still stay pretty moist because they're made of almond flour and it won't get too dense. So we're gonna put them in the oven. All right. So so as our cookies are cooking, as soon as the cookies come out, we're gonna put our little chocolate. So Kimberly and I will put our little chocolate things on them, but we'll let them cook. Mine, I'm gonna go a little bit longer. You can even like touch them, and if they like totally like just give in, then they're not quite done yet. So I took mine out. Mine are nicely done. So you see they got kind of cracked and stuff. So now I'm going to actually put, I'm going to put my chocolates, get them out of the freezer. So I took my chocolates out of the freezer and they just kind of come right off. See, mine are just these thin little bally things. And I'm just going to press it into the top of it. And it actually just kind of melts right in to the top. So you see some of mine as I piped them, they didn't really get, see how funky that one looks? Plus, the maple syrup wouldn't make the texture any different. It would just give it a little bit of sweeter, but some of them are a little flat. But they turn out quite nicely. And then when you put them in, they kind of just melt into like a nice little ball, which I'll show you too. So this one is a little bit higher, but some of them do, like they don't flood, but they definitely don't like puff up like a Hershey's Kiss. We would have to use other sugars and oils to actually get it to puff up like a Hershey's Kiss. They do say to let them sit on the tray for about 5 minutes or so, but mine I did that, so now my chocolate is melting on the top, so as they sit. But you're welcome, like I would dig right in. I love a warm cookie. They don't have to cool. You can dig right in and try it out. Try it out and tell us what you think if you want. You'll have to try it and see. It definitely is different, but it's still delicious. It's not like a peanut butter cookie, but.
Yeah, these are amazing.
Yay! I'm glad you liked it. But I would also suggest keeping them in the refrigerator. So I had mine in the refrigerator before. These ones were from yesterday or 2 days ago when I made them. Now that they've been sitting out, they're really like, they're a little wobbly and stuff. And well, mine were a little underdone too. But I would probably store them in the refrigerator and take them out a little early before you decide to eat them. Just otherwise they kind of all stick together. Well, thank you all for joining our cookie baking time. Hopefully we'll be able to do this again. Baking something else maybe different. Great.
Thank you.
Yes, thank you guys.
That was awesome.
Okay.
All right.
Thank
Yeah, have a
you.
good night.
Enjoy your cookies.